Welcome to UFO Classified.
So my skeptical mind, and that's just who I am, my skeptical mind goes to, well, yeah, of course, you've got this guy over here that's logical and reasonable, and you got this guy over here that's wearing a tinfoil hat. Of course the tinfoil hat guy's going to see a lot of stuff, right? He's like imagining it, or he's watched one too many sci-fi movies.
But it's used to help us frame hypotheses for UFO propulsion, power, stealth, weapons.
Everything that we experience is very positive.
Sometimes the field of ufology has a short memory span.
We didn't know anything about the $22 million back then. We just kind of thought, well, this is, and I think that was the reason why they were looking for military-type people, because in the military, you work with whatever you got, no matter what the situation is, and you just kind of adapt and overcome.
What are you going to do with all this? You can't even take care of your own files and get them put into the current system, but yet you want to go collect other people's things. So what are you going to do with it? Who are you giving all this to?
It just really struck me about how the common thread seemed to be deception, but deception of a human nature. So that's what I started thinking, who would these folks be? I mean, then I started thinking about the intelligence agencies, what role they could play, and what would be their motivations for getting involved in ufology.
I'm not saying that because the gimbal is not a rotating flying saucer, that means that all the UFOs are false. Not at all. All I'm doing is I'm looking at this one case, these individual cases, and seeing if there's an explanation for those. So try to, if I could ask people out there listening, don't think that I'm trying to attack your entire beliefs about these things.
Good afternoon. I'm Erica Lukes. I was happy to be here on a Friday evening, and I want to just thank everybody for paying attention to the show, for spreading the word. I need your help to get it out there in as many ways as I can, and we have to get good information out to the public. If you've been following my work over the years, you know that my feelings, my opinions on things have drastically changed. The more I've learned, the more I've educated myself, and the more I've looked at things that are outside of ufology, really digging into a person's background, their business dealings, their political leanings, seeing a bigger picture, which there is a bigger picture, and it is really critical for each of us to understand that. You know that I have been very critical of To the Stars Academy, as I will continue to be, because I personally feel at the end of the day that organization is just another way to steer the narrative, collect data, and unfortunately not promote the truth for each of us. And if you look at the players involved, you can see their repeated patterns of doing the same types of things over the decades, specifically people like Dr. Colm Kelleher, Hal Puthoff, Dr. Eric Davis. They have been a part of the problem, not a solution to the problem, and we need to find the solution to the problem, because there is something genuine that deserves respect. We deserve to be empowered. We deserve to know that our own personal sightings aren't something that should be fearful, which they love to, now the threat has come into the narrative, and unfortunately that's just another way for them to, again, take away our power, and also for them to get defense contracts. Let's be plain and simple. This is about money. This isn't about disclosure. So let's get over that and see it for what it is. My guest this evening is someone who I have come to know through the radio show, and I've been watching him, and he is so intelligent and smart on social media, and he gets in there and really challenges people, as we all should. And I think that we, for us to to just simply, like I said, just kind of roll over and take it and not ask questions of people is just ludicrous, especially in the wild, wild west of the UFO circus. And so anyway, I appreciate Chris for doing that. Chris Borrelli he was military police. He is a police veteran. He did personal protection for the State Department. He's a retired intelligence analyst, and he worked for all three letter agencies and the DoD as a gatekeeper to special access programs. We've been hearing that a lot lately. We'll talk about that. And he also held the highest of government security clearances, prepared and administered defense briefings for Congress, the Senate, and the President of the United States. So here is a gentleman with a great background, and he can teach us a lot of things. And so, Chris, I want to just say, welcome to the show. I love getting to know you. And, not to mention the fact that you're beautiful, you're an incredible artist, you're gifted, you're a musician, you've got some cool guitars going on, and you also have the intelligence to sit back and look at some of this stuff and just go, what?
Absolutely. It's scary.
It is. Really and so tell us how you got involved in this.
I've always been into the phenomenon, and it's important, I think, for people to hear that from me, because I do challenge people so much on social media, and I want people to know that I am not, I am a believer in the phenomenon. I'm not a skeptic of the phenomenon. I am a skeptic, however, of some of the players that we're seeing and hearing over the years, especially as of late, some of the stuff that's going on. So. But yeah, I've been into the phenomenon for as long as I can remember. I mean, I think my introduction to it all was, honestly, my dad was huge into astronomy and telescoping and that kind of thing when I was really young. And he gave me this book. I had to be like 7 years old maybe. And it was like The Wonderful Flight to the Mushroom Planet. And it was just this really cool book about, young adventurers who built their own little spaceship and flew to Mars and, all this cool stuff. And there was a big series. And ever since that book, I was just glued to the idea of extraterrestrial life or, anything outside of our planet. I've just, astronomy, all that stuff. I love it.
I do too. It's also fascinating, and I love to learn new things. I've learned so much about things I never would have expected when I first really started to dig into this in a public sense, and it has been really enriching for me. And it's also, as we know, when you get caught up in some of the drama and you get wrapped up with people that are maybe delusional or don't have a lot of integrity, it's like, it can be a bit daunting. And you and I both talked about the fact that, you need to pull back sometimes and regroup and then focus on some of the happier things in life. When you're digging into this stuff, it gets to be a lot.
Yeah, it gets really, really heavy. And you have to look at, what are the motives for some of these folks? And I don't think all of them are entirely bad. I don't think that, there's a few definitely out there that, disinformation is something that that's their motive. I think there's other folks out there that are, they just want to believe so bad that, they're going to swallow and, repeat anything that they think, supports the idea of UFO disclosure. Whether it's right or it's wrong, and they'll argue to the death. And, folks like that, you can't blame them. We all want to believe, and then you have other folks that are, they want website traffic, they want, YouTube views, they want, revenue.
Right.
So they'll say whatever they have to say to get that, get people excited and get that revenue going.
Well, and you see that a lot when you look at the, all of the upper echelon, when I use that term very loosely, of people that are on the UFO circuit constantly. And, you look at, you listen to some of the things that they, that they promote, and you just think, really? I mean, and you watch them and you watch their careers and you watch how maybe they had something of merit to say to begin with, but then they got so excited to have their ego stroked and 50 girls lining up at the table waiting to get books signed and different things that it's like they just lose. It's like, okay, well, I've got to stay relevant, so I'm going to, promote things that are entirely false, and we see that. I mean, I think if anybody is listening and you've gone to a UFO conference, I mean, it's full of delusional people. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Have you ever been to a conference?
I've not been to a UFO conference. No, I've been to a bunch of different conferences, but I get it. I've always kind of sat in the shadows on this subject. I've done my own research over the years, tons and tons and tons of it. But I've never really gotten involved with any of the players until recently, when I just started to see stuff that was driving me absolutely mad. But yeah, the subject attracts all types for sure.
Well, and I think too, and it's interesting because we know that the powers that be have always kept an eye on specific people in the UFO community, and I think a lot of that is because these people are mentally unhinged and potentially dangerous to society. Because they get these, they get going with some of these beliefs, and the government is bad, and it's a real whacked out. It can be a real whacked out place, and I think right now in ufology, that has really come to a head, and so people are believing any conspiracy theory that comes out, and it's so sad. And I wanted to say this too because I didn't mention it in my opening, but I've noticed people that I used to really respect, people I've had on my show, people who are supposedly God-fearing Christians, and I've watched the way that they have behaved and the things that they have said, the demoralizing things that they have said about women or people of color, different things like that. And I just think, yuck, that's not what this is supposed to be about. This is about us learning and trying to grow as people and look at a phenomenon and get it taken seriously. This shouldn't be a political platform and kind of one of those places where it empowers you to go out and say whatever you want and act like a complete idiot,
Yep. And that's with any subject really. Not just the UFO subject, but anything you get into where you have a community and you give people a platform. Those folks that take the podium have, they make a conscious decision on what they do with that power, and some people do good things and other people, they use that power to get, whatever they're looking to get or whatever they're trying to spread or whatever,
Yeah, it is interesting, and I wanted to talk about. I want to get your thoughts on the two New York Times articles that have come out recently. What when you first read those, what was your response?
Honestly, that it was comical to me at first, and I hate to say that because there's two sides of this news. You have the folks like us within the community, all of us that are interested in the subject, that have heard this. It was nothing new. It was the same stuff over and over and over and over again. And you have, the folks on the outside world that that don't really pay attention to this kind of thing, and they're kind of, it raises eyebrows. But again, it's the same story that they've been posting. So, a lot of these, quote unquote UFO researchers were making these huge, bold claims as to what was going to drop in this article. And I knew it. I said it. There's absolutely no way that's going to happen. It's not going to happen because they have no reason to do that. The government itself has no reason to do that. They have nothing to gain and everything to lose. So if something like that was to come out, you really have to wonder what's the motivation behind that.
And that's a really important point, and I think that's what people they're missing because, like you said, they're so eager to believe that they're just going to buy buy this hook, line, and sinker and, raw disclosure. It's like, okay, look back historically, because guess what? This has kind of happened every decade, and, it's for me, especially with my Skinwalker Ranch research and seeing, Bigelow, Kelleher, Knapp, all of these people that have been promoting stories that I feel are not accurate and red herrings, to say the least. I think that, for us not to ask questions about what their motivations are, or to, better yet, not see, because it's pretty plain to me that it's about money,
Oh, yeah.
It's just mind-blowing that people are that, they need to believe so much that they're not willing to be critical and look at this, especially with an important topic like this.
Yep. And that's why I urge people, this is why I challenge people on social media. And I'm not trying to cause trouble. I'm not trying to challenge their ideas so much. I'm trying to lead them in a direction to do some research, So, and that's the big thing, is that nobody's doing their own research, and it's not that hard. A lot of this stuff is open source. You can see who, Bigelow has ties to, or who he's had ties to over the last, several decades. And you start to put, the dots start to connect, and you start to see things a little more clearer when you do research like that.
I totally agree, and that's what, why I just encourage people. It's like, don't do your research in the UFO realm, because all you're going to get is just a load of nonsense. This has to be, it's critical. When I was really digging into the Skinwalker stuff and seeing the connections and the millions upon millions of dollars that were being made off of different business deals in the community near the ranch, and then, things like that, it was just pretty mind-blowing to me, and but it's important, because then you look at the bigger picture, you look at the big motivation, and who's lining whose pockets with money, and who's doing what favor for what politician, and you can see the end game a little clearer. And unfortunately for all of us, the end game has nothing to do with UFOs.
No. No. For some of these guys, absolutely not. Absolutely.
And so what are your thoughts? Let's talk about TTSA, because when, I have to admit, I remember I had just spoken at UFO Congress, and it was 2017, and I remember that Tom DeLonge won the Researcher of the Year award. And I think you could hear everybody at the tables surrounding me, just sitting there like, what? You've got all these wonderful people like Dave Marler or other people around that have really done a great deal to preserve history, and they're incredible researchers, and they were just like, what is this about? And I remember I went out with a friend of mine, Ted Rowe, who's the executive director of NARCAP, and I want to just throw in there, I want to encourage people to go to his website, because he just has a new case that he's working on that is very incredible. So go to narcap.org. But, we were out camping because we went to do a field research project in a very active location in southern Arizona and things. And we had many talks about this, Tom DeLonge to the Stars Academy. And back then, I felt that this was, I'm like, okay, cool, this is awesome. Maybe something good is finally going to happen, and it'll give us a platform to go out and work with the media and to try to give some credence to the subject. But very quickly, my thoughts and wanting to be optimistic about To the Stars Academy was diminished, because I could see what their narrative was. Other than getting a TV show and, looking all sassy with your tats and your, military hairdo and going around and looking at, I don't know, whatever, some arts part or whatever we're doing today. It's just like, I don't know. I didn't see that. And not to mention the fact that they're not, these people, if you try to reach out to them, they're not communicative. They it's like they're going to go with who they want. They don't want to talk to anybody else. They've got a message, and they probably know that if they did talk to other people might have questions about their motivations and some of the statements that they've made that have been, blatantly false.
Yep, and that's a point I make to a lot of people is, especially with all these, they have this new TTSA talks that they keep putting out, these podcasts or whatever there, and I keep pointing out to people, if you notice, these guys only allow each other to interview them. They won't, they don't do interviews outside of, they did Tucker Carlson, Lou has done a couple of things, but they won't do anything that they can't. If they have to know what the questions are beforehand. If you notice, all their answers are rehearsed, and they refuse to be caught off guard, and that's a big tell. That's a big sign.
It is, and it is interesting that it is. That this is, again, you're seeing this. I mean, other than the New York Times articles, which I find curious because you've got. You've got Keene and Blumenthal, who don't typically write for the New York Times, and they're coming in and doing these two stories. And the last story, they had to make a correction because they had quoted things wrong, misrepresented Harry Reid and things, which isn't the best in that journalism has to offer. But
that was a huge correction. That was like that was the cornerstone of their story that they just had to take out. So yeah, that was I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, that was not that's not that doesn't help the cause for sure to have that kind of stuff, and so I think people are kind of scrambling and trying to run defense. But I do know that I talk with and have a lot of friends and acquaintances that are mainstream journalists that are incredible journalists, and they are always, we're always talking about this and how people that are good journalists kind of step back and go, whoa, wait a minute. I mean, this, you see this article in Popular Mechanics, you see, this TV spot segment on KLAS. You see, all of these things that are taking place, and if you really look at what's the content is, it isn't the best in journalism.
No, not in the least bit. And you have to look at the history of some of those reporters from the Times that broke that story. I know one of them at least had done a story in the past, kind of mocking the whole UFO phenomenon. So, what's the deal? What is going on there?
It is interesting, and I think that again, we need to look a little more critically at all of this, and for me, that it's great that UFOs is front and center, but I always love the fact that America seems to be the only country that has recovered a crash saucer, or is reverse engineering things. And to me, when I look at that and it's, we've got these crash discs. Okay, really? No, we don't. Come on. We don't. Why would we be the only country? Maybe because that gives us an advantage. I don't know. We got to, I don't know. I mean, what are your thoughts about that?
I mean, if we did, there's absolutely no way on earth that the government's going to say we do. There's no reason. There's absolutely no reason. They have everything to lose from saying that.
Yeah, exactly. And so why would you think, I mean, you've been involved in all of this behind the scenes for a long, long time. What would be the advantages for them to come out and say some of these things, and then to, have the couple of the videos released and different things like that? What could they possibly be thinking?
It would be an amazing cover story. And it's almost impossible to punch through.
And so a cover story, and I know you're speculating here, but what could they be covering up?
Oh, all sorts of things. U.S. technology, for one. If they have, I don't know anything about the the TR-3B they've been talking about for so long. I have no idea if that's a real thing. But if it was, and now they're going to start flying it around in the open a little bit more, I'd probably start talking about UFOs. I'd probably start, a little faction, maybe call it TTSA, and start putting out information about, we're going to start disclosing some of this information that we have. It's a great cover story.
And I absolutely think that's what that is, and I think that when you've got the video that they've, or the videos that have been released and things, I mean, it's in my opinion that would be our technology, and somehow it got out, and so they're creating this cover story for it. I don't know. And I also think it's interesting, when you look back at Bigelow's work or his work with NIDS, and you look at some of the reports that they were writing, they were, looking at the cattle mutilations and the radiation on the tissue, and then they look at the black triangle sightings, and then we know that we have, obviously we have craft that looks like a black triangle. So when you step back and you start looking at some of the things, and then looking at the OSAP, the solicitation sheet for OSAP, I mean, how does it really get any clearer? And how can people still cling on to the fact that these are the extraterrestrial beings that these people are talking about, or craft?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, and that's the thing. Like I said, I believe in the phenomenon. I believe that, UFOs are, they've been here, they've visited. I believe that. But all this stuff with TTSA, I guarantee you that's a cover for something else.
Right, and I agree too. And I think if it's always concerned me, especially when they started to come out with the threat narrative, that, oh my gosh, these are the people that are going to be, if there was something truly taking place, these are the people that would be, instead of maybe opening a dialogue and having communication with another intelligence, these would be the people that would be shooting them out of the sky and taking over that control, from us. And I think there's so many levels, that are just dangerous. I don't want these people making decisions like that for me, because they're clearly not coming from a good place.
Absolutely not. No.
Yeah, I know. It's really interesting, and I know that you and I both, we get out there and we say things, and people view that as skepticism. And I appreciate you saying a couple times, that you believe, that you understand that there is something more. I do too. I think all of us do, and that's why we're here. And that's why sometimes, for me personally, I get so frustrated, because I know there's something of merit, and it makes me sad, and it makes me angry that certain contractors or people in the government are doing their best to try to take that personal power away from us with regard to this.
Yeah, I mean, it just muddies the waters even more. And some of these guys, you know what? The Wilson Davis stuff is another thing that's driving me absolutely insane, because that stuff, I don't know who's pushing that stuff. There's so many holes in those documents, and the so-called experts now that are speaking out about, how accurate, the stuff in those documents are. Folks, those documents are not in the least bit accurate, and I know because I've been there. And it's important for people to know that hearsay is not evidence. So,
and I absolutely agree. Could you give, for our people that are listening tonight that are they're new to the subject, give us a little bit of background on the Wilson documents?
Okay, so the Wilson documents were Dr. Eric Davis and Admiral Wilson supposedly had this meeting in a car in Las Vegas, and spoke about Admiral Wilson being denied access to a crash retrieval program within the government. Apparently Eric Davis took notes, or somebody took notes that was there in the meeting, and those notes were uncovered from Edgar Mitchell's estate years later. And those notes hit the web. People started, trying to figure out, is this real? Is it a hoax? What is it? What's going on? And it's I don't I guess to the average Joe that has never worked inside the government, I guess it's believable for sure. Um, but for someone that's been on the inside, somebody that has worked on these things, somebody that has worked at that level, there are so many holes. It's crazy. That thing it's a mess.
And so, what are some of the holes that you see with the documents? And before you answer that question, I just want to say, of course, you've got Eric Davis coming out and saying things which he's been, I mean, that's another story. But so what are some of the things, the alarm bells that went off for you?
There's a million. I've got a list. So I watched Richard Dolan's 5-hour deep dive with Mr. X, who supposedly has worked on the inside on stuff like this.
That must have been painful. I hope you had a margarita.
Oh my, I can't believe I sat through 5 hours of that.
I know.
Honestly, I did it so I could sit down and take notes, just so I could poke holes in everything because there was so much that's where I have to ask, is it misinformation or is it disinformation? And there's no way to know really. It's motives. First things first. So Richard Dolan said that the fact that meeting happened isn't in dispute anymore. He knows it happened. There's evidence it happened. And my question immediately was, how do you know that happened? Because Eric Davis told you so? Because Hal Puthoff told you so? That doesn't mean anything. How do you know that those guys are not pushing you to tell these stories? Because that's part of a cover. So that right there was immediately like, there's no way to know that meeting happened. Nobody knows that meeting happened. There's two people that would know that meeting happened.
And one of them saying it didn't.
One of them saying it didn't, and the other one is known.
Who's more credible?
Yeah. So, I don't know. It's crazy. So, I could go into all kinds of stuff in there. I've got tons of it.
Yeah. That would be great. I would love that. I think we really need to break this down because unfortunately this is getting a lot of airtime. And I think, and I wanted to say, you bring up a great point. Is this misinformation or is this disinformation? Was Edgar Mitchell given this document or involved in things and pulled into the Bigelow narrative? And was he fed information that was inaccurate? I think that is an important question.
Yeah. Dolan stated that there's a wealth of detailed information in those notes that confirm that they're real. That is wrong. There's plenty of detailed information, but it's not right. So that doesn't exactly confirm that the notes are real, just because there's detailed information. What they say, the crash retrieval program is run by a private entity beyond the authority of the U.S. government. This one, folks, there is no program like that is beyond the U.S. government's control. I don't care how high of a classified program you have, every single one of them has congressional oversight, and I know that because I worked on them. They all have congressional oversight, all of them. And they're trying to say that, this is an illegal program, and you have private corporations that are, running amok and doing things, and they're babysitting themselves with no oversight. That's not true. They all have oversight. So there's one, and I can tell you that because I was on it. It's not hearsay. I'm not going to tell you so and so told me that. I'm telling you that because I did it. What else? The Joint Chiefs do not have a need to know. That's maybe sort of. The Joint Chiefs are told the gist of programs. They don't need to know the inner technical data of programs. So to say that the Joint Chiefs don't have a need to know, that's not true. And there's two sides to that too. If it's a research and development program, they may not know until it becomes something more in their purview. If it becomes more of like a weapons program, then they're going to know. If these things have been figured out and how we power them, how we move them, and now we're building them ourselves, then they're going to know. So that's not necessarily true that they don't have a need to know. Somebody said, in that video, Mr. X said these programs fall under SCI clearances. No, they don't. They don't. SCI and SAP are two totally different things. They're two different worlds. So that's not true.
Can you explain the two different worlds, what they specifically are?
Sure, absolutely. So the SCI world is specially compartmentalized information, and that's going to be the intelligence community. And then you have the SAP world is the DoD community, the Department of Defense. So those are the two houses. You have DoD and you have the intelligence community. So yeah, to say that they fall under SCI, no, they don't. You can be on a SAP and not have an SCI clearance, and vice versa. You can be on an SCI program, and actually 99.9% of people on SCI programs don't have SAP clearances, but that's neither here nor there, I guess. They talked about how Admiral Wilson and I forget who it was. What's his name? Oak. What's his name? Oak Shannon.
Yep.
They had met at the McLean Secure Facility, where the Advanced Physics Theoretical Working Group had met. That was in Oak Shannon's papers. I got news for you folks. That was my facility. That was a facility I ran. So, yeah, I know everything that happened in there. We know this document is real because nobody at TTSA are denying it. How does that make it real? Just because the folks at TTSA are not denying it, that makes it real?
Yeah, well, apparently it does to a lot of people on Facebook.
Holy smokes. That's crazy to say that. You're putting a lot of trust in the TTSA that they know everything. So, that's wild. What else he say? Some of the guys, I think they're referring to Hal Puthoff were answering questions in a roundabout way so as to confirm the information without actually denying it. So basically, they're saying that, if they asked him a question, they weren't saying yes or no. They were saying, kind of talking around it to lead you to believe, either a yes or a no. Folks, if that actually happened, I got news for you. That's punishable by law too. It's called talking around is what we call it. And that's just as bad as just straight up breaking a non-disclosure agreement or breaking that government oath and spilling the beans. If you talk around, you're going to get the same punishment. You're going to get snagged for that, and you're going to lose your clearances. So I don't think that that's actually going on. I've seen some of the things that they're referring to, that these guys are talking around. Honestly, I feel like if they are talking around, it's because they're leading you off the track. They're trying to push you out. They're pushing you away from what's really going on. What else? There was a big thing about Hal Puthoff, how he was at this conference and somebody asked him, did Eric Davis have this conversation with Tom Wilson? Did it actually occur? Blah, blah, blah. And Hal, there's debate with his answer whether he was repeating the question or he was confirming that it happened by repeating the question. And that's just maybe the silliest thing I've ever heard in my life. He was repeating the question. And Hal even later denied that he confirmed that. So, yeah.
Yeah, those guys are also slick, and it's like 1 minute they're saying one thing, and the next minute they're saying another thing, but at the end of the day, it's like they've just been lurking around and muddying the waters, and for the life of me, I can't understand why these people are even, then they're hanging out with Rick Doty, another story. And it's like, at what point in time are we so stupid that we put these people up on a pedestal?
Yeah.
It's like they have done, look at what they've done historically. They've added nothing but confusion to the field. And, I look back, I've been kind of looking back at Hal Puthoff and some of the potential connections when his career got started early on with regard to, that Sidney Gottlieb. I've been looking into that, which could be a very, if that connection is accurate from what I'm gathering, that connection in and of itself should be alarming people. Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, Mr. MK Ultra. And so, it's like, come on, people.
Oh, yeah.
Wake up. And I want to just point out, there's a really great person that I like a lot. He's a journalist, Billy Cox, and he wrote an article called Eric Who, the Admiral, and that was on June 15th, 2020, and you can read the article, and it very specifically in there, states that that Admiral Wilson said that this meeting never took place. And so, but then you get the conspiracy theorists who are, they're, oh my gosh, it's a cover-up. It's a cover-up. If you, it's like, no, it's not a cover-up. It's just that Eric Davis is probably full of it. I don't know. Call me crazy.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Eric Davis, I don't think he's full of it. I think he's leading people down a different path. They don't want people to figure out what they're doing. So they make up stories, they make up, all kinds of stuff to kind of lead people, away from what they're doing. I don't know. It's just me.
I think luckily there are people out there that actually have the intelligence to look through things and see through these sorts of games, and I think that's really important. Like I said, I think both you and I are kind of cut from the same cloth, because we're willing to ask questions, and we've both probably come under fire because people are saying that we're skeptics, and it's like, no. You can pick and choose what you want to pick and choose, but I know that I'm not a skeptic. I know that I've had personal experiences. I know that I've been to Norway where they're actually conducting scientific research. I understand there's something there, but this isn't it. And when you look back, like I say, historically, at what we've done in the United States to throw up all these landmines with regard to this, it's just been absolutely incredible, and it should make each of us pretty angry to know that these types of games are taking place. And in my opinion, people ought to be saying to Eric Davis and Hal Puthoff and people involved at Skinwalker Ranch and things like that, okay, wait a minute, what is your end game? Why is it, that you can, now we've got all these questions with regard to Skinwalker Ranch and all the NIDS people involved, and guess what? They're all involved in non-lethal weapons testing. But yet nobody wants to admit that could be happening. When historically you look back and guess what? It does happen.
Oh, sure. Of course it happens. Yep. There's no denying that for sure.
Yeah.
I'm trying to see, is your chat up right now?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. I'm trying to get it. I can't see it. So I was going to answer any questions people had, but I can't look at it.
Yeah, I will. There's some great comments, and I want to just thank, we've got Jasmine in here tonight. I want to thank her and Bill and at UFO Researchers, so many great people, and I'm seeing new faces. Phil, who's been on my show, Phil and I always cause trouble when it comes to MUFON. I've got to love that. I have a feeling we might have a few more shows to do, but but everybody's really liking, what you're saying, and I think the sentiment is the same. And Jasmine said, why are they presumptive gatekeepers? Why are these people guarding? Well, not guarding. Why are the certain people in charge of all of this nonsense?
If you're talking about gatekeepers in the sense that I worked, or you're talking about gatekeepers in the sense of TTSA?
It both, actually.
So you're going to have gatekeepers on the government side for sure, and that's just information security. I mean, the job is to, we're trying to keep that information locked down as hard as we can, and it's not to keep it from the American people, not in the least bit. It's to keep it from our adversaries, because that's what gives us a leg up on, if World War III pops off, for any reason, you don't want the adversaries to know exactly what we got going on. It's counterintelligence. It's blocking those adversaries from figuring out what we're working on, what our capabilities are. That's you don't want to you don't want to show your cards.
Right.
On the government side, that's what the gatekeeper is for. Honestly, on the TTSA kind of side, I think it's similar, but I think they're used more as the cover story,
And I absolutely agree. And I think that is a huge cover story. I mean, I look at some of the things that have, Area 51 and that nonsense, and then, you've got people, well, I mean, when you look back, it's specifically the same people over and over again that are coming out with these stories. And in my opinion, for anybody to even think that Bob Lazar is credible in the least, I think they need to, I don't know what, maybe, try medication. I don't know. I mean, it's just so ludicrous when you look at the things that he's been involved with. The guy is not on the up and up. It's, Area 51, that the whole thing is just a big smoke screen. And it's like, why are people so fixated on these things that are clearly nonsense?
And, I think you pointed out to me, and I didn't know this, Lazar had ties to Bigelow, is that correct? Didn't they? They had a company together or something?
Yes, they did, actually.
Yeah. See,
Shocker.
That's eye-opening stuff like that. That's really eye-opening.
Well, it is interesting, and it's so many people want to, again, defend Lazar, even though, he was involved in a suspect in a murder case because his company was shipping chemicals that were used in a murder. I mean, he's was involved with a brothel. There are all sorts of, you could go, all these things are a matter of public record, and yet here you've got a guy that Stanton Friedman did a great deal of work on and basically said, okay, he didn't graduate from where he said he did, A, B, C, and D, that these things are wrong, and yet people are still out there, carrying this torch. Bob Lazar is right. Woo. And I guess, because you've got, a video, a movie, the Corbell movie that really is just mostly Corbell flipping through documents and walking around his living room in his thongs. But, you've got different types of, things like that. And people just want to get wrapped up in this land of fiction. And it's I don't know. It's insane.
Yeah. I finally got into the chat, but yeah, I noticed somebody, UFO researchers, talking about how the Wilson documents and the Lazar stories are starting to merge, and they are. It's crazy. All these stories are starting to just pile into one, and it's, it's like one giant lie.
It is. It's promoted by the same people, decade
Yeah.
after decade, and then you throw in Skinwalker Ranch on top of that, and guess what? The same people. They're involved behind the scenes, in front of the camera, whatever you've got, and it's all, and it's funny. And I wanted to just bring this up with you because, I was talking to one of my colleagues who has been helping me with some research, and she was just saying, if this is such a threat, then why in the world, are we trying to go up to space and then have space habitats and hotels, and we're going to, build A, B, C, and D here and there? If there is such a threat, then why is this happening?
Yeah. Why are we going to go hang out there?
Well, no.
Let's go stick our citizens out there and see what happens.
Yeah, that ought to be fun. But I mean, it's really interesting. And so tell us why you think, and at UFO Researcher in chat is bringing this up. Why is TTSA, the Wilson documents, Lazar, why are all these stories to you starting to merge?
That's a really good question. They are, and I'm following it. I'm watching it. I've been watching this stuff. So, um, it's tough to say. I mean, I'm wondering, are they going to spill something about, Area 51 or S4 or whatever? Um, it again, it would all tie into an awesome cover story. So that's my guess. I don't know. And honestly, if you look at, again, some of the people like Elizondo, right? Elizondo's been at TTSA for 3 years now, right? And he left the government in 2017 to go to TTSA. Elizondo never left the government. He still has his clearances. And if he has his clearances, those clearances are being sponsored by a government entity. A private company cannot sponsor clearances. So TTSA doesn't hold his clearances. Some government agency does. So who's he really working for?
And so what publicly has he said about that?
He talks a lot about his NDAs, which is not a big deal. NDAs don't last, just as long as you've worked on the program. NDAs are a lifelong obligation. So, that's why you have, retirees that, they haven't worked with the government for 20 years and they still, they tell you, I can't say anything. So, yeah, I don't know. And there's rumblings in the background now that, that Elizondo's going back to the government. So I don't know. That'll be interesting to see.
And so so the government would just be using him as kind of a puppet master, as somebody that is out there spreading misinformation or disinformation for a cover story.
Absolutely. It's a disinformation campaign. I guarantee you it is. And you know what? I hate to say that. I really do. Because when all those guys got together at first, I honestly, I was pretty excited about it. I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. This kind of looks like what Stephen Greer tried to do. Was it in the early 2000s when he brought all those people together from, retired government folks, and I don't even know who it was, like the Canadian Prime Minister of something, or, whatever it was. He brought all these folks together, and that I was excited about. I was like, oh, this is cool, and it kind of went nowhere. And now TTSA, I was excited, and now the more that they talk, the more I'm like, wow, this is a whole lot of BS. And DeLong has like diarrhea of the mouth with the stories and stuff that he comes up with and he talks about. And his Rogan interview where he talks, General so-and-so brought me aside and he told me, during the Cold War, we captured blah, blah, blah. No, he didn't. You mean to tell me that General so-and-so is going to break the law and he's going to break his NDAs just to tell you that they captured a saucer?
Right.
Where is he? When's that dude going to understand that they're using him and the enormous platform that he has?
Well, I'd say maybe he's in on it. I don't know.
That's the thing. Honestly, I think he's not smart enough to know that he's in on it. I think he's inadvertently in on it. Yeah.
Well, oh dear.
I mean, I hate to again. I kind of hate to say that, but I mean, if he knew better, he wouldn't say the stupid stuff that he says. Somebody posted the other day that a giant link of things that Tom DeLonge has said, and it is some of the most amusing stuff I've ever seen in my life.
That could be exciting to look at. I mean, it's funny because you look back at some of the interesting ties with all of this, and then you throw in Peter Levenda, who's Mr. Occult, and all of these. Oh my Lord, it just gets so deep with all of this, and I don't know. At what point in time do you kind of step back and look at yourself and say, "Holy crap, I'm just a useful idiot"? Yeah, exactly. Wake up, and that's the thing. And maybe he knows, and at this point, he's just, he's in so far. He's like, God, I can't admit to this ever. Or I mean, do you think, some of the Do you think there are people in the government that, or involved in all of this, that are steering the narrative that really believe this type of thing? And are they, for me, looking at some of this and some of the nonsense that these people are putting forth, it's the Armageddon, the end of days, and, we've got the demons and the angels, and we've got, all of these things that are happening, and it's all this, leading to the apocalypse. And I just think, oh my Lord, really? I mean, I mean, do you think some of these people actually believe this, and that's where, they're trying to, I don't know.
It's tough to say, because you do have some of the old school folks, there's definitely a much older generation that's kind of still in government power there, and beliefs in some of the older generational beliefs are very different from, some beliefs we have nowadays. So that's definitely a possibility. But, I think it's a push to weaponize space. Not that it hasn't already been done. I'm sure it has, but isn't it, odd that this whole Space Force dropped at the same time, TTSA popped off? It's crazy. It's a weaponization thing. I guarantee it is.
Absolutely. I mean, and to me, that's as plain as day. And I don't, again, I'm going to bring up the solicitation sheet for the OSAP, contract. It's like that. What are they looking at? They're looking at weapons. They're looking at different technologies. They're trying to see what other countries potentially have that is an advanced is a threat to us. I mean, nowhere in there to me, and they're looking at the effects on human beings, aka Chris Mark, Skinwalker Ranch, Chris Bartell, Skinwalker Ranch, all of those things. And it's like at no point in time does it really say that this is extraterrestrial. I mean, it's like, give me a break, people. Wake up. But yet then you've got people like, Tim McMillan or people like that are out there, that this is the 500-page secret document from Bass that I was allowed to look at for 2 seconds. And basically it's a bunch of nothing, like, we've seen from Bigelow decade after decade and things. And it's like you've got people that are out there taking this and then pushing it to this extraterrestrial nonsense. And you even see some of the big TV stations, the networks, who are promoting this type of thing. And it's just like, oh.
Well, look at the tool, the network that they're using. You notice that they keep using the New York Times. I don't know what the tie is there, but there's definitely something behind the scenes, because even Knapp recently said that he had the story and they told him, don't do it. Don't let it out. We want the New York Times to put this out.
Well,
right?
It is a little bit more credible, but...
And then you have all these other news outlets that start picking it up, but that's because it's a competitive subject. If one person pops off on this subject, of course they're all going to follow and try to get their own information and try to put out more and overdo each other, because that's competition in the media. But
well, and you mentioned Tucker Carlson, and you notice that it's mainly you get the New York Times dropping a couple articles, and then you see Fox News, that is running with these stories, and we know that right now this is a great time for people that want to get government contracts and want to weaponize space and do different things like that, and so it would make sense that you can look back and see kind of a bigger political agenda and picture there.
And that's how you get support from both political parties, is by using Tucker Carlson and the New York Times. You get both sides.
Right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Isn't it? I mean, it's the whole thing just is so fascinating to me, and I wish I love this topic. I know, like I said a million times, like you've said, there's something genuine to it. I know we're not talking about that tonight. We're focusing on kind of the underbelly, the seedy underbelly of this subject, because it's an important thing. when we've got new people coming into this and they're looking at the biggest, brightest, shiny object and thinking, aha, this is disclosure. And we just have to make sure that we stress to people and educate them that no, this isn't. This has happened time and time again. And as you mentioned, this is a cover for other things that go on behind the scenes that are potentially not in our best interest. They might be, but they also might not be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's just, it's all fascinating. And I want to say we're going to take a little break now. I'm going to play some music from, I have a Facebook friend. His name is Morris Peters, and his son, Sean, is a member. He's the drummer of an Austin-based band. It's an original band, Untitled Chapter. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But the song is called Hotel Fever, and it is a really, really cool song. I hope that I get the chance to see them live sometime. So I want to play that. We're going to take a break, and we will be back. I'm here with Chris Borrelli. This is a fun conversation, so stick around.
It's all I'm asking. It's all I'm taking. getting meaner. I'm a soul tale. It's all a masking. It's all a taking. Getting meaner. I'm a soul tale. It's all a masking. All I'm taking. Getting meaner. I'm a soul tale. Fever. I'm a soul tale. Fever. Yeah, a soul tale.
Okay, that song totally rocks. I am digging having people send me music and allowing me to play their original songs. That was a great song. Hotel Fever. I want to thank Sean from his original band in Austin, Idle to Class A, for giving me the opportunity to play that and get some exposure. Like I said, I cannot wait. I hope I can get down to Austin very soon. Things will return to normal and I can hear some great live music because this band rocks. So thank you so much, Morris, for letting me know about your son. You must be really proud of him. I am here now with Chris Borrelli, who is not only a friend and somebody that I respect, he is a gifted artist, and we're going to talk about that towards the end of the show, but he also has a great background. He was a military police, he is a military police veteran. He did personal protection for the State Department. He's a retired intelligence analyst and has worked for all the three-letter agencies and was a gatekeeper for special access programs. So he absolutely knows what he is talking about, and we can learn a great deal from him. So it will help us navigate the waters, which is really important when we're dealing with some of these shadowy figures that are hiding behind fake names and doing whatever they're doing on some of these videos that I just have to sit there and laugh and think, Chris, like seriously, some of this stuff is so cheeseball. It's just, I cannot wait to get my sock puppet show up and running. It is, yeah, and it's it is, and I think it is comedy, and when you step back and look at it, you just go, wow. I mean, we really, I don't know, I have no idea. It's just it's very curious, and so I appreciate you stepping forward and engaging people and calling people out on specific things. We all should be more like that. And so what I want to say, too, I also want to, while I'm thinking about it, I want to thank Scott Brown, who has been graciously providing all of the wonderful graphics for my new podcast. Scott, you do amazing work. Thank you very much. And I want to thank Mario, who is my right-hand man when it comes to UFO Classified. He's been there with me all the way, and I really appreciate both of them. And now let's get back to some of the questions that you were having with regard to the Wilson documents that have dropped just recently in the public forum and things. And Richard Dolan has been doing a lot of work on the Wilson documents, and then Michael Hall, who is the UFO lawyer, has also done things promoting the documents. And I wonder if, I brought up the question in the last hour, if perhaps these documents were given to Edgar Mitchell and perhaps he was being played by the Bigelow clan.
That's a good question, actually. And I never thought of that until you brought it up. Because, there's ties there that I didn't realize were there.
Yeah, it is curious. And so, so what are some more thoughts that you want to delve into with regard to this document?
Yeah, let's dig in. Is my sound working? Somebody's saying I'm cutting out.
No. Yeah, you're good. It might be an operator error, but I am getting better.
Operator error. It's an
Me.
error. Okay.
It is. Trust me, it happens. They're getting, I'm getting better though.
So anyway, we talked to, Mr. X on this Richard Dolan interview was talking about these SAP programs and the existence of this possible crash retrieval program that Admiral Wilson was trying to get access to and couldn't. So yeah, some more of what he said. Mr. X had stated he was trying to get into the Strategic Access Program. He said that over and over and over, the Strategic Access Program, but there is no such thing as a Strategic Access Program. And for somebody who supposedly worked on the inside, I'm very surprised that you wouldn't know that. There's a Special Access Program. That's a thing. He made a claim. He made a claim that Richard Doty. People were saying that Richard Doty made up that document. And then when Dolan kind of was like, "What? People are really saying that?" He kind of turned his answer around. He was like, "Well, no." It's like, why did you just say that? What is the point of making up stories like that? So Commander Will Miller apparently was the go-between for Dr. Eric Davis and Admiral Wilson, and he's the one that got those two talking, supposedly. And I guess Joe Murgia, is it Mugria? I don't know how to say his name. UFO Joe,
Right.
made this bold claim that he was not just, but at some point he was at Commander Miller's house. Now, in the documents, Admiral Wilson makes a joke about, as Davis and Wilson are talking about Commander Miller, Admiral Wilson makes a joke about how, Commander Miller needs to pay off that beachfront property, Well, UFO Joe claims that he went to Commander Miller's house and it's not on the beach, which I found fascinating because Commander Miller's house is on the beach. He actually has a boat slip in his backyard with two boats. And I've actually sent a photo of his house to Erica. He lives right here in Clearwater, not far from me. So why UFO Joe would make a claim like that again? I don't understand if he's trying to make people believe him by throwing in random details. But why would you make up something like that? It's totally not true, and it's not only not true, that's easily verifiable.
Why do any of these people do some of the things that they do is beyond me. And I think that it just goes to show you that most of the people in quote unquote the UFO community just believe things at face value, which floors me. It's like, can't we figure out that we've been lied to, that there are con artists involved that have been making money off of this, that I'm sure people that are working for the government are sitting back, just going, oh wow, this is awkward on multiple levels.
Yeah. And in those documents, Wilson made a claim that if any of this came out, that he was going to deny it ever happened. He was going to deny knowing Davis, all this stuff. It was too risky. It was a security violation. And then it did come out. So the question is, did he get a violation? Probably not. And I got news for you. It's more than a violation. If he'd go to jail over that. So that's way more punishable, than just a violation. So there's absolutely no way that happened. Mr. X was talking about SAPs, the different levels of SAPs. There's, you have your acknowledged SAPs, your unacknowledged SAPs, your waived SAPs, your waived unacknowledged SAPs. Mr. X said that Congress and Senate only get briefed if they ask, which is 100% not true. Congress and Senate get briefed on a regular basis, and I know that because I did those briefings. That was my job. And those guys, they actually have to go through semi-annual and annual security threat assessment briefings. So they get briefed regularly. And I don't want to say, it's not an every week, every month thing, but they're getting briefed at least twice a year. That's a requirement. That's mandatory. And that's the highest of special access programs. Dolan says there's, what did he say? There's little to zero oversight on these programs from military or government, which is wrong. Not only is there oversight, but these private corporations actually share spaces with their government sponsors. So they're in the same offices and rooms. And when a private corporation is working on one of these secret access programs, it's not 3 or 4, government or military guys that are overseeing it or there. You've got dozens of them embedded in there with the private corporation. Like they're there working together. So that's 1,000% a lie. I don't know who's giving him that information, but that's wrong. He said they're not being honest in reporting to their oversight committees. Again, 100% false. They have to report twice a year. I think there was also a claim that they were that the carved out SAPs are trying to find the word, not immune, but they're basically they don't have to go through a government security inspection every year. Again, 100% false. Even the carved out programs are getting, and have for decades been getting, security inspections by the government. Every year they get an annual and a semi-annual security inspection. So that kind of comes back to Admiral Wilson too, and him talking to Eric Davis. If this conversation did happen, Admiral Wilson's getting upset that he doesn't have access to this program. But here's the deal: anybody in that position that Admiral Wilson is in knows that he doesn't oversee every program. He doesn't. He may oversee some programs, and he knows that. He may oversee most programs, but there are some programs that he does not oversee, so there's no way he was getting pissed off because he didn't have access to this program. He knows he doesn't have access. So, and the person today that's in that position doesn't have access to every program. They're not supposed to.
Right.
So that whole thing kind of drives me insane too. The carved out SAPs, they have site inspections regularly. Site inspections. They have folks from the DoD that come in, and then they inspect the facility. They inspect everything from. He even talked about what an inspection is supposed to be, and I'll explain that a little bit so folks kind of know. They're inspecting everything from the doors to make sure that the doors are soundproof. They're inspecting the walls. They inspect the vents in the facility, the air vents that come through, so that, let's say an adversary was, let's say somebody from the Russian government's trying to figure out what's going on in so-and-so office building, and they know that it's a program, and they want access to it, and they want to know what's going on in there. They're going to go through all kinds of crazy stuff to figure it out. So they might stick a little RC something in the air vents and run it through the air vents. Those things get inspected. All that stuff gets inspected, even down to the computer systems, the computer security, the program officers get inspected on, whether or not they're doing annual training for these guys, their security trainings, they're doing foreign travel briefings. If somebody on that program decides they're going to go take a vacation in France, they actually have to go and sit down with the program security officer who's going to sit there and give them a briefing on all the threats that they could deal with going to France. As far as, what do we know about spies? Who's spying on them? What are their tactics? What are they doing? When you're in your hotel room, this is what you're going to look for, blah, 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 stuff like that. This stuff is happening, folks. It's happening. These inspections are happening. These guys are not running amok on these carved out access programs. So I can keep going. Sorry.
Yes, no. I love this. No, I am fascinated. I'm just like, keep going.
Yeah. They're saying that these programs are completely contractor run. Absolutely not. They have a government sponsor. There's huge potential for monetary theft. Absolutely not. There's oversight for that. What do you say? The reason for a carved out program is because unintentional disclosure would cause great loss of life. That's true. They were questioning that. There's no reason to have a program that, with that much protection. Yeah, there is. Absolutely, there is. If outing that program would cost the lives of American citizens, then of course it's going to be protected to that degree. Here's the thing. I mean, this is the real world, folks. Spies are in our country spying on us. Guess what? We have spies in other countries spying on them. It happens. This is the real world. So guess what? There's programs out there that protect our guys that are out there doing stuff like that. And you know what? If an adversary got a hold of the names and identities of those people, that's going to cost lives. So of course they're going to protect it to that degree, 1,000%. So what else? What else we got? Kit Green made a comment.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, he made a comment that private company clearances have more power than government clearance. That's absolutely not true. They're the same exact clearances. Private company clearances are sponsored by the government. There is no such thing as a private company clearance. There is no such thing. He made this comment about, how they have more, folks in the private sector have more power. And I think what he's actually trying to get at is it's not that they have more power. It's that folks in the private sector have access to more programs. So if an Air Force colonel is part of an Air Force program, he's not going to have access to some Army program. Whereas somebody in the private sector can have access to both programs and be working on both at the same time. So I think that's kind of where he was getting at, where he's saying company clearances have more power. They don't have more power. They just have access to more programs. Mr. X said, what do you say? The director of special access programs is being groomed for the black world. They groom officers. No, that's absolutely not true. It's not just officers that get those positions. They're not grooming officers for, I think he mentioned something like they're grooming them for great retirement positions. And that I guess they get lackadaisical once they get into those positions and they don't really do their job and they don't oversee things well. Not true. It's not just officers that are in those positions. There are some, absolutely, but honestly, a majority of them are not officers, actually, now that I think about it. But private corporations with no oversight could be making contact and diplomatic decisions that could affect entire civilizations. Get the F out of here. You think that the government's going to let a private corporation make decisions for the government and the American citizens? Absolutely not. That's crazy talk. Things are falling on my desk. I'm banging my desk.
You're animated. This is good.
Oh, I am. Oh, that's crazy talk. That's not even a possibility. That's 1,000% false. They think that these private corporations could be colluding with ETs. Are you friggin' kidding me? That is nonsense. That is the craziest thing. These folks, you need a new job. You need to find something else.
Or a good therapist.
Yeah. What do they say? And people that were trying to help Admiral Wilson had motivation to help him. No, they wouldn't. They'd lose their own clearances for trying to help him get into a program he doesn't have access to. So that's wrong. My thought was, here's the deal. If that meeting, and I'm not saying that it didn't happen with Eric Davis. I'm saying the stuff in the notes is wrong. If that meeting happened, if Admiral Wilson told Eric Davis the things that he told him in those notes, my thought is he's lying to him to protect something. Maybe he's trying to figure out what Eric Davis knows. So, I don't know. But that's how protection works on those programs too. You don't just deny knowing what those programs are. I mean, there's cover stories for those programs. So, what they'd say, the SecDef was told to drop it when he tried to get access to the program. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. The Secretary of Defense would not be told to drop it. The Secretary of Defense is briefed on all special access programs, including carved out programs. Every single one. Admiral Wilson responds to a lot of Eric Davis's questions, saying that can't answer that, core secret. Can't answer that, core secret. But the truth is, he never got access to those programs. He doesn't know the answer to that. He wouldn't know the core secret because he never got access to the program. So that makes no sense. What else? Let me see. Let's see. SAPs make the rules up as they go. Absolutely not. There are written rules that have been around for decades. You can look at the JFAN or the DCID. Those are two manuals that these programs have to follow. They've been around for decades. Eric Davis claimed that there are many crash retrieval programs. If that's true, why isn't Eric Davis in jail? Let's see. Government manager and contract program manager have been necessary for decades. Yeah, they were saying that there's no need for a government manager and a contract program manager. They've been around for decades. There is a need for both of those. Wilson claims to have met with the gatekeepers, and they told him that what the program was. Why the hell, if the gatekeepers are going to deny him access to the program, why are they going to tell him what it is?
Well, that just is a very obvious question that I think most people haven't asked.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Like, I'm sorry, sir, you can't be in here. Oh, by the way, it's aliens. Get the hell out of here. Yeah, get out of here. He never. And then, he talks about the bigot list. How he was shown the bigot list. Two things. One, we don't refer to it as a bigot list. It's never been referred to that. That's something from World War II. It's called a special access list. And he would never have been shown the access list because the access list is also classified to the highest degree of the program. So he never would have been shown that. Claims that they were operating illegally? Absolutely not. Yeah, I think that's all I got. I think I got bored at that point. I was like, "You got to be kidding me! I'm done."
I apologize for busting out laughing, but it's just, you're so right on, and it's like when you put it that way, it's like, how in the world are people just lapping it up? I mean, it's just like you can create whatever, a fictional tale and put it out there and people will believe it because they just, I don't know. I mean, have we lost the capacity for thinking, of coming up with our own thoughts? And I mean, it's shocking to me. And, we saw, Dolan did the interview, the deathbed confession, a few years ago with that fellow who's been also proven to not be who, I mean, that's a different story, but it's like, at what point in time do we not get things that are very clear? Because it's a danger, you know, when you start believing some of these things and people are so fanatical in their belief systems, it's like, it's just, I don't know. It's so frustrating.
Yep. And here's another point. So Eric Davis, I'm sure he works on numerous programs. Most of those, the engineers and scientists, they work on tons of programs. They're not just the ones they work on, but they're consultants on dozens of programs. That's just what happens. So if this guy decided to make a claim in the New York Times about, we have materials from vehicles not of this world, first of all, that would be a core secret of any program that it could be. So A, he'd be in jail for leaking that. B, any other program that he works for any other sponsor doing anything, would totally not trust this guy and would cut his clearances. He'd be toast. He'd be done. So, yeah, it doesn't make any sense what's coming out of Eric Davis's mouth. It makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same thing, and I mean it's interesting because I've had Eric on my show before, and I used to really, I thought I liked him, and I was again kind of in one of those phases where I have always wanted to believe the best in people, and I've learned a lot of lessons, painful lessons in the UFO community that you simply can't do that because a lot of people don't have our best interest, my best interest at heart, and they don't have the best interest for the subject at heart. And so I started to kind of, when I would hear things from Dr. Davis and from other people, I just kind of sat back and I thought, whoa, wait a minute, something's not right here. And I'm definitely not going to be, I don't know whether he thought I was going to run out and share this information with the world, which would have been really dumb on my part, but clearly he's got other people that are going to do it for him, Joe Mercuria and things.
He was betting on him, sure.
Yeah, and so I'm, it's something, again, that people have to be careful of, especially some newer people in the field that pop up, and they're surrounded by these people that are supposedly the UFO gods. They're going to bring disclosure, even though they've you look at Benowitz and you look at Serpo, you look at all of these things that have happened, and you think, wait a minute, these people do not have anybody's best interests at heart. They are cold and calculated and cruel, and I wanted, this kind of brings me to the subject of Skinwalker Ranch, because I want to get your ideas on this for people that are just listening to my show for the first time. I have done extensive work over the years about Skinwalker Ranch, and have probably the most comprehensive collection of things on research on the ranch. And I've had Chris Marks, who I'm conveniently married to, so it's Skinwalker Ranch 24 hours a day around our place, but not really. We're kind of getting burned out on it. But Chris worked for Bigelow and spent 6 years at Skinwalker Ranch, and we've both gone through this discovery process together as we've learned more about the OSAP solicitation sheet, as we've learned more about, Kit Green, Hal Puthoff, Robert Bigelow, who I hope that guy looks at himself in the mirror some nights and just says, wow, I'm not a very good human being. But anyway, that's going to be between him and his mirror and his hairdo. I don't know. Another sock puppet there. Anyway, so I think that, it's like, for me to see that the Skinwalker Ranch, it has very clearly, you've got Kelleher and Knapp, who went in and they played upon the beliefs of some of the people in the area, and then they took some of the sightings, George, that Junior Hicks had been investigating, Dr. Frank Salisbury, back in the 60s and 70s. They took this place and created this persona, and then they just kind of sat back and watched it grow, and this big psychological operation, I think, at the end of the day. And then they had people like Chris and his colleagues that they basically primed when they went to work for Bigelow, and then sent him out there and did, Lord knows what at the end of the day. But I'm still just in shock that people, after every bit of information that we have put forward over the past year, and even statements from Mr. Knapp himself, and Corbell, who are, saying EG&G operatives, and somebody with this contractor was telling Colm Kelleher that they were deploying toys. They used the word toys, which I just think is so offensive to begin with. If you're using non-lethal weapons, you don't call them toys, so give me a break. But so you've got these toys that are being deployed on the ranch and around the ranch, but yet, whoa, even though Kelleher is supposed to be involved in this and Bigelow's supposed to be, he's getting the funding, they don't know who these people are that are deploying toys, aka non-lethal weapons, on military veterans. I mean, it's just like, come on, give me a break. And so now that I've gone on that big diatribe there, what are your thoughts on the farce that is Skinwalker Ranch?
I mean, it's again, that's tough to say, because obviously the players involved are, you have to be skeptical. They're, these are guys that are known to be involved in things like you're talking about, non-lethal weapons program, stuff like that. So, and that's another thing. I've seen some merging of TTSA references to Skinwalker Ranch. I've heard rumors of some of the TTSA folks visiting the ranch in the past year. So big eye opener. What's going on? Here we go. This is a great, cover story, and nobody's leading that cover story better than TTSA. So what's going on there?
Exactly. And my thought, and this is what the new owner has said all along, is that he was doing something completely new, and that he didn't get any information from Bigelow, and that this was, something that, it wasn't connected to the government or anything like that. But now all of a sudden we're seeing that, like you said, TTSA, with the same people involved with Bigelow, are involved. And then, who knows what's going to happen on the second season of the show. I'm hoping they can maybe get a couple different new balls of yarn, and sit there with maybe a couple other coffee cans and try to figure out the problems of the world and the alien invasion. But it's like, I mean, it all connects. I mean, it's insane, and it's all, I don't know. Something's rotten in Denmark and Roosevelt, Utah, actually. But I want to ask you, because you would know out of everybody, what is a psychological operation, and what would be the point?
There's two ways a psychological operation can happen. You have your sort of physical psychological operation, where they could, be using these, quote unquote toys that they're talking about to direct some form of energy that, can cause you to hallucinate, to hear things, to smell things, to feel things. So you've got that side, and you have the obvious psychological operations where they're just, it's information. They put out bad information. They lead you down a road that, you never would have gone down before. It's going to, lead you to certain beliefs that you normally wouldn't have, that kind of thing.
Well, the one thing that I hear from people who are kind of questioning the Skinwalker Ranch narrative is, why would they do this, at this specific place? Wouldn't that be,
because it has a built-in cover story.
Right.
Yeah, you already have people talking about supernatural things for decades. Well, great place to test something out.
And so do you think, and I know that, Travis Taylor has mentioned, and he's the lead on the new show on the History Channel on Skinwalker Ranch, but, he has been asked specifically about that in interviews, and even though he supposedly works on non-lethal weapons, he said, well, it's preposterous that anybody that from our government or anybody would be testing non-lethal weapons. That was something that we did back in the 60s, and that certainly wouldn't be happening now. I mean, what are your thoughts on that comment?
Why would we stop? Why would we stop? Especially here's the thing, if our adversaries are doing it, of course we're going to do it. Because we need to keep, we have to keep a leg up on our adversaries. But yeah, why would you stop doing research on something like that?
I agree with that. And I mean, I have read over the past few months several quotes from people in the military saying that we needed to test these things on our own population and to make sure that they're ready to go into the battlefield, into theater. And so it is interesting that we, have this idea, or that we're being told by somebody like Travis Taylor that oh no, we don't do that anymore. Okay.
Yeah. Here, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it is interesting. And so do you think that there could potentially be anything truly paranormal happening at the ranch? Do you think it's just a cover story? What are your thoughts on that as you look at things now?
I'm on both sides of the fence here. I think there's definitely testing, government testing of their, quote unquote toys. The ranch is fairly new to me, just in probably the last, I want to say 2-3 years. So I haven't had a chance to dive into it like I've done, all the other stuff I've done over the years. But I don't know. I'm really curious to dig into. I really want to hear your interview with Junior Hicks. I'm dying to hear that. But I want to hear what some of these, some of the stories were prior to Bigelow, because I've heard both sides, that there were stories, that there were no stories until Bigelow got there. So it's hard for me to make a decision, other than I'm sure that there was testing going on with Bigelow there. But other than that, I don't know. Is there something, a phenomenon actually happening there? I don't know.
It is interesting, and I think that when you look at Utah as a whole, I mean, we love defense and aerospace contractors. We love the military, and that's great. We need them, and I support that. But when you look at a place like Dugway Proving Ground, and you look at the fact that back in 1968, I believe there was a test that went awry, and 6,000 plus sheep were killed. People were exposed to things, and there was a huge denial from the powers that be that this ever happened. It took a long, long time for that to really come out, for the government to take accountability for that. To this day, we're still doing open air testing out at Dugway, and so we, in Utah, there is the potential that we can get away with a lot, because we're one of those states where we've got incredible people that live here, and we believe and trust our government and our religious leaders. And so a lot of times we don't ask questions that we should about what's taking place in our environment and who's being put at risk. And then you've got a place like Skinwalker Ranch that abuts a Native American reservation, and there are a lot of questions that we should be asking about that. Do I think that there has been something, testing that has taken place in that area before Bigelow? I'm kind of wondering if that wasn't the case. I do find, with Junior Hicks, that it was interesting in talking with him that, he understood that people like Bigelow and the Bigelow scientists were stepping in to handle him. I believe that Junior Hicks probably had people that were trying to handle him until the day he died. And so I think, because of some of the things that he saw, people felt the need to make sure that they could control that narrative a little bit. He did, mention, the element that some of the scientists that worked for Bigelow mentioned, element 115, or, whatever Lazar was talking about and things. And so there was that push from these people to, again, promote that narrative, the Bob Lazar narrative, the cover story, all of that stuff. And it's fascinating to see that all roads are leading to the same people and the same types of information.
Yep. Surprise.
I know. Shocker.
Yep.
But I mean, what would you recommend for people that are new to this subject? Can you give people advice on how to move through this with the least amount of damage, so they're really making good, informed decisions?
Do your own research, and don't. I don't want to call people out in particular, but don't listen to the quote unquote UFO researchers that are, selling autographs and, looking for website clicks and YouTube traffic and, do your own research. It's there. It's there. You know what? You know how they got their information? By doing research. So do it yourself. It's going to be unbiased.
Right. And absolutely. And I think it's really easy when you start into this field. You and I both know this. It's like you're looking for a community. And I have talked about this before. I mean, I was looking for a community, and I found MUFON, which, in hindsight, that was a great learning experience, whatever. But I'm glad that I was smart enough to quickly see through what was going on there. But, then you've got this community that likes to travel around and go to different conferences, and, they're talking about the alien hybrid babies and just different things that I just think, oh my gosh, you can get pulled into it. And I think right now, especially with social media, you can get pulled into these different groups. And basically these groups are headed up by people that, you can't verify their identity. They're using a pseudonym. They're controlling a lot of different groups. And basically what they're doing is just collecting data. And that is really, a sketchy thing. And I want to, if people want to get out there and share information about their sightings or do different things, I would not be doing it on Facebook or social media, to be honest with you.
Absolutely not. No. That's the thing. Like you said, it's people, new folks coming into the subject are, you're like you said, they're looking for that community because they want other people to chat with it, chat about the subject with, and it's exciting. It's an exciting subject, but the truth is nobody knows what it is or what's going on outside of what we know our own government is doing. But nobody knows what the real phenomenon is. So there are 1,000,001 different viewpoints. And my advice to people is don't argue about it. Just because somebody else has a different viewpoint than you doesn't make, who knows if you're right or wrong? We don't know. Explore those other, viewpoints. Listen to people. Don't argue about it. So I see so much hostility in the groups. Even me, like I'll call out somebody from TTSA, like, "Oh, Elizondo lied again," joking around, and I get hit from so many different sides from people about, just straight up calling me, names, and, I'm like, good gosh, folks, like, calm down. I'm just trying to get you to think for yourself. That's it.
Yeah, I wonder if these people understand that they're being used, manipulated, and they're being, it's like, are they okay to be henchmen for an organization that is clearly less than credible? I don't know. That's how I don't want to be remembered. I don't want to go down being a bully, a pack of, like some wild dog that's defending people like, NAP and TTSA when we just fully can clearly see their motivations are not pure. They're not for our best interest.
No, absolutely not. And honestly, that's, to me, that all these groups and all that stuff that NAP is pushing and these guys are pushing, honestly, that's almost like psychological warfare. They're just letting the community beat each other up. They feed some information, let them beat each other up. It's a great distraction from what's really going on.
It is, and it's always funny to me that they can, get out there and oh, poor me, oh, these people that are causing this big ruckus, and even, after everything happened, with MUFON, a couple weeks ago, where the executive director was arrested for, soliciting a minor and different things, and then you've got the question swirling around about the interim executive director who owns a sex Mile High Club and is very blatantly talking about in different articles that, oh yeah, a guy hired me to bring up a dog and we're taking kids on their first airplane rides, and you've got, Jay-Z Knight and all of that, and it's just like, I mean, at what point?
Absolutely crazy.
At what point do we just say, okay, wait a minute, this is dangerous. This is dangerous, and we have an obligation to do our due diligence, and we have an obligation. We have to speak out about this type of thing because we care that much about the subject.
Yep, absolutely. And I want to keep it clean. I want to keep people on their toes because I know that there are people out there that are very dishonest. And I'm going to keep calling them out. Sorry.
I know, and good for you. And I think that I'm very grateful that I've got people that listen to this show that have that mindset. Everybody's here every week supporting the show because they realize that we have to ask these critical questions. And I have been very encouraged as of late because I've had several people that are mainstream journalists that have reached out to me they're listening to the show, they're paying attention. I love that. It is really important because this is a bigger topic and I want to be able to reach more people, as we all should, besides the people in the UFO community that are still arguing over conspiracy theories and are promoting false beliefs and dangerous beliefs, to be honest. So I think that's good. I appreciate you because you have all of these wonderful qualifications and you understand what's really going on. So when you see, the Mr. X interview, you can say, hey, wait a minute, this is wrong for multiple reasons, and ask these critical questions. And that benefits us all to do that. And thank you.
Yeah, sure.
I love it. And I want to talk a little bit because we're getting ready to close the show, which is always just a sad moment in time for me because I could talk all night. Just ask my husband. Some days he's just like, really let's just give the UFO stuff a break. But, whatever. It's kind of my bag. Tell us about your artwork because your creations are incredible, and I cannot wait until we have a beautiful dining room and one of your pieces.
That's funny because you call it artwork, and it's not. To me, I'm just doing woodworking.
Wow.
It's just it's epoxy using combining epoxy and different species of wood, and I build all kinds of stuff, tables and charcuterie boards and clocks, you name it. I do all kinds of stuff, and that's just always been my thing. I get into all kinds of creative stuff, and I like to bend the rules and stretch things as far as I can to the limit. So,
it's just phenomenal. It is so beautiful, and I can, when I look at it, there's a specific table that you've done, and it has the blue running through it. That just, oh my gosh! I just look at it, and it's so. It speaks to me. I'm going to have one of those. And so where can people go find your work?
There's a website. We do have, it's lmcwoodworks.com. Like Lima Mike Charlie, LMC. There's a gallery there. It's a little bit about how we do it, that kind of thing.
That's so awesome. And then let's talk about your music. Let's talk about your guitars.
Music? Oh gosh, I've been doing the music thing since I was a kid. Playing guitar, I played in bands, numerous bands over the years, and I even ran a record label for a little while, like some punk rock and radio rock, stuff like that. I did that for about 12 years just as a hobby, and it was fun. It was a blast. I love music. That's like my driving force. Yeah.
And it is it's nice to have that creative outlet. In fact, tonight I know that Chris is going to play one of his 20 guitars, I think. And then I just went and got some new paints and brushes tonight. And so I'm going to, I don't know, just space out and paint some clouds and have a nice night, an artistic night. And I think that's really important to keep us grounded, for sure.
Absolutely. I was actually, just before we got on this call, I was doing a rock painting class with the Wounded Warriors. So that was a blast. We painted a whole bunch of rocks.
That is so cool. And so tell us a little bit about your involvement with Wounded Warriors.
So it's funny. I was actually the Virginia chapter president for another program called Take a Warrior Fishing. when I was up in DC working for the government and stuff, and we would take these guys out on fishing trips, these guys that were coming back from the Middle East, to try to acclimate them back into society, and get them to interact with other people, and just through outdoor activities. But the funny thing is that now I'm actually on the receiving end of that. I actually am a wounded warrior. So in the program down here, I actually am in it as a warrior.
That, and I love, and that when I talked to Chris, because he obviously has made, he's a very brave person, just like yourself, and it's done a lot for our country and its security and our security. And so for him, that is a really special thing that you do that for other warriors.
Absolutely. Yep.
And so do you, and I love that. And so, I mean, what else are you doing right now? You're doing your beautiful artwork. I'm going to call it artwork because it is artwork. I hate to tell you this. Yeah. And then you're jamming. What else? Yeah. What else is going on?
Jamming, fishing. I'm on the water a lot, quite a bit. That's kind of my zen. It's my mental health. Keeps me in check. And that's it. I do a lot of stuff around the house, a lot of woodworking and hobby type stuff. That's it.
And then a little dabbling in the UFO community.
Yeah, research. I'm a total research buff. Anything that I can research, I dive in. I love to research stuff.
And so I have to ask you, just before we close the show, but I mean, what is your favorite case or topic that you have researched?
Honestly, the Travis Walton case. I absolutely love that story, and it's so beyond interesting to me.
It is, and I've been with Travis at different conferences that we've both been speaking at, and I mean, he's just such a nice man, and very, very quiet. He keeps to himself a lot, and his story has never wavered, and it is an interesting case for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that and John Mack's book. I'm reading that right now.
Right, and we were talking about that the other day, and the fact that Bigelow was again behind the scenes with the abduction research and with John Mack, and so there are going to be some interesting threads that we're going to find connecting all of these people, and I look forward to have you back on the show, and then we can talk about some of the things that we're finding and how all roads seem to lead back to Las Vegas.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
I don't know. It's interesting. And thank you again so much for being here. I appreciate you supporting the show. And that means the world to me. And I want to just give a shout out to all the people that do support the show. And if you go to UFOclassified.com, you can pledge your support as well. I appreciate it. This is a listener supported show, and everything helps to keep me on the air and to get good information coming out to all of you. I think that all of us are in the same boat. We deserve the best. We deserve disclosure. We deserve to be given accurate information, and it is critical right now that we understand that the powers that be, the typical names in the field, have no intention of doing what is right for us, for humanity. They're making money, and like I always say, I hope when they look at themselves in the mirror at the end of the day, they feel good about the choices that they've made. I don't know. That remains to be seen. But Chris, thank you so much for being here.
Yes, ma'am.
And
thank you.
Yeah, it's fun. We'll talk again soon. And I want to tell all of you, I hope that you have a safe and wonderful, relaxing weekend. Go do something fun and artsy, like I'm going to do. I'll post pictures on Facebook later. I'm sure that will be the height of your. That'll be exciting. But anyway, thank you so much. I'm going to play my little outro. This is Eric Lukes with UFO Classified. I was here with Chris Borrelli tonight. I will be posting the show link later. Have a wonderful evening. Be safe, and we will catch you soon.
It just really struck me about how the common thread seemed to be deception, but deception of a human nature. So that's what I started thinking, who would these folks be? I mean, then I started thinking about the intelligence agencies, what role they could play, and what would be their motivations for getting involved in ufology.